Hello, everyone. We are Vortex Cast. Justin is unfortunately not with us tonight. He's got something. I don't even remember what he said
I
this
think he's
time,
actually just running errands that he cannot otherwise make time for.
supposedly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the rest of us are very clearly here. Recently, we had a ban list, literally yesterday, actually. Um, and it hit everyone's boogeyman, the Titan of Terror, as Broberg would say, the Chud Lizard. Uh, he was errated to say first form, and he has to pay the check for his card now. But that is the only change we got. Um, how do we feel about that?
I'm at least relieved that the metagame has improved. I hope, somewhat.
Yeah, it's we knew they were gonna we felt very strongly they were gonna do something. It's nice that there wasn't some like weird like salespeople intercepted this somehow and caused it to not happen. I don't know if that's ever a thing that actually happens. I imagine there's obviously to some extent, right? Like we
Right,
can we can assume that they're not going to hit things that are prize promos recently or things like that, and that's usually true. But if they really had to, they probably would at the end of the
right.
day. And in any event, nothing weird happened. He got a errata as everyone expected. He got probably the strongest version of the errata that
Yeah,
he could have gotten.
I think he might have gotten a little over eroded personally, but it's whatever.
Yeah, I think it depends, right? If you don't want to like completely kneecap a character, but if you
Sure,
want to errata in the place where like, all right, well, we're probably making sure that they won't win a big tournament, but you could still show up with it with a straight
sure,
face or and like play it at your locals and be doing stuff and not have like a total brick of a character. I think
sure.
I think
And I
that's
mean,
fine.
he is still a seven hander effectively with 28 health. Like, there's a world where if the rest of the meta gets curbed a little bit more, he could even top again. But
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I like the analysis that I saw in a couple places that he kind of changed from a finisher merchant who had the option to be like, I can open with Hunter's Ally, I can open with Queen, like I can play Queen of the Monsters second or something like that sometimes. And now he's really a merchant of I'm going to first form Hunter's Ally or I'm going to first form Destructive Heat Ray, and then use that as like the building block of the rest of the game plan. And I'm going
right,
to get this value engine. I'm going to play
Yeah,
these medium long games like
yeah, I
we
heard
always
Tam
been
was
kind of
doing
predicted.
Storm of Arrows things, right? And you
yeah,
always have the
Hell
Hunter's
yeah.
Ally for your Storm of Arrows. That's pretty cool.
that is pretty cute.
So there's still stuff he can do. He still scales up the power tokens. You still can put in some form of like, when I get enough power tokens, I will probably just kill you.
Sure.
And at that stage in the game, I'm probably passing my checks. It's just he is the sense that you had to like race him in a lot of matchups before is not like there's still a clock there, but it's not as fast, right? It's
Right.
not doesn't feel like you have to like bum rush race him. If you take a turn off, you're not gonna like instantly lose.
Right.
Yeah, and he has to
And
pay real costs to get
Yeah,
any of the options he wants,
yeah.
right? Like the growing grass kill at the end is not on the table necessarily. You maybe aren't playing growing grass anymore, right? Like,
right.
Right. And you do get to plan around his turn a little bit better as opposed to like getting smacked for free with something that he checked in the middle of the turn. Now you kind of know what he's going to be playing early. Obviously, you still don't know what's in his hand, but like you can adjust properly to what he plays at the beginning of the turn instead of worrying about what he's playing at the end.
yeah, I thought for me the most frustrating thing about fighting Godzilla was that you had to like respect the full range of the full spectrum
Yeah,
of
Right.
options, right? He could have a giant speed bomb, he could have a throw, he could have a Shinashigeki, he could have a pile of Queens of the Monsters with Hunter's Ally stats and Grog. And defending all of these at the same time it basically just turns into a sumo wrestling contest. Like which of our decks is stronger? And his deck was stronger.
Right.
yeah. There's a difference between like, well, he might have any of these five things in his hand. And I'm gonna pick which ones I want to play around, and like, no, I have to cover all five because he's gonna get whichever one
Right.
works.
Because he's got
Yeah.
all of them in his discard pile and he's going
Yeah.
to get whichever one he thinks is best.
So they notably, to some people's chagrin, they did not touch Reiner 3. They didn't do anything. They didn't steam fit to do anything about like the Mothra shaped deck, and that's not terribly surprising. It's definitely the sort of thing where the shadow of Titan of Terror was so huge that you can't from like a design chair really assume that like, okay, well, the couple decks people were playing very by and large because they were good into Titan of Terror are gonna for sure just stamp out everything that wasn't beating Titan of Terror.
Right.
Yeah, and like I think they had a line there that I saw get some mockery of like, we want to see how the metagame evolves, how things can adapt to that type of terror here. And I think I want to steal about that a little bit because I think that it's easy to just say
Yes.
like those are cheap words, like doesn't mean anything. But like what that means is that if you have a metagame that's a 2-deck metagame with Reiner and Mothra, like you can play 25 deadlock cards in your deck and now have a good Mothra matchup, right? Like it's not that deck doesn't win without being in deadlock. It is very hard time with that. At least the decks we've seen so far that are
Right.
depending completely on like Bachelor Arrives, imprisoned, like prison decks, so to speak. And then Reiner, like you can fight Reiner. Like Reiner is a deck that has a very porous defense, right? He's a strong deck, but he's really like stunning you and breakering you a little bit, and then letting you do what you want, more or less, right? He's not passing a lot of control checks on like 6+ difficulty blocks very often.
Yeah, he just says your stage doesn't do anything a lot of the time.
Yeah,
but if your attacks are good enough, you can break through that.
Yeah,
and so there could be a lot of things that can flourish in the middle space when they're not getting,
Right.
get dropped on their head for 100 damage goldfish on turn 3
Right.
by Titan of Terror.
yeah, and it's it might be like it's not the easiest needle in the world to thread to be like, okay, I want to be good against both of these things, and then probably the third one you want to triangulate is probably Hedora, I imagine, because that comes to mind as a character that should be fine into Reiner. Like it's not a slam dunk, but he should be fine into Reiner. There's not any strong reason why he would or wouldn't be, right? And and equally like
card pool, and if he checks some threes,
yeah, and fine into Mothra, right? If you're like an analytical observation build, you have some answers to the throw hate if you're on Earth in particular, and even if
Also,
you don't, you can just say
yeah.
like, I don't know, you're gonna draw more throw hate than I draw attacks, like
Right. Like because Mothra will run out of throw hate, you may not run out of throws.
yeah. So I could see some some tide shifting to people who are willing to be a little boring, I dare say, just like playing Hedora and just trying to throw people to death. That's not the most exciting deck in the world, but it can be pretty effective.
Yeah, and I realized something crystallized in my head too, that at some point in one of these discussions of, if Mothra is the best deck in the format, at the very least it gives you a lot of options to fight it. And I remembered that the excitement I had before we all kind of came to recognize what Titan of Terror meant, about like the bottom deck shenanigans with Jet Haymaker and Immense Showdown, and then eventually you draw this hand with 6 full attacks straight off the bottom of the deck, the perfect 6, and that's a play that's available against that character.
Character that's expressly playing after they cycle foundations because that's their plan.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, we'll see what they come up with. I mean, right now, there are corners of the community that are in full hysteria mode because they're early testing into Reiner. They haven't found anything that feels good into it yet. There's plenty of time for that to change. We're gonna have some LCs. We'll see how it goes. But I think generally the space. I think a lot of people might be over focusing on whether or not they can stop him from flipping, and that's you're probably not going to stop him from flipping for very long, right? You might be able to delay him a turn or something,
Yeah,
but
you
you
can stop the turn 2, but
the main thrust of it is just be prepared to fight a guy that's gonna like be doing normal speed attacks with some selective stun and some damage, and like that's all good. That's a good package, but it's still just pure 6 hand size if he doesn't have United Front and some printed speed moves that have some damage on them, and he's got yellow tension against you, and that's a hill you have to climb, but there's nothing like psychotically insurmountable about it.
Yeah, and I think that like the specific shape of that kind of beats a lot of like the really simple polar strategies, right? If I say I'm going to play every attack I draw every turn, like, well, that you might fail your checks if Reiner's tapping your board down. Oh, I'm going to play I'm Deku. I'm going to play a 2020. Well, he's going to yell a Roman cancel, and it's not going to work. But if you actually fight him, you actually like get in the red zone and make him get lucky on his draw steps type stuff. There's a lot of universes to be played, even with Reiner and even the powerful character. And I think just trying to opt out of it is deleterious to your success. But I think a strong deck can just fight him.
Yeah, I think good
Yeah.
text on your character is a big part of it, and whether we think it's good or not to like have that much reliance on character abilities to handle your main stats or whatever. I know talk about Peak a little bit in the chat. That's certainly something that would seem on the table. I don't think there's any reason why Peak would not be able to beat Reiner. I think we were talking about it in one of the discords today, and Jose was like, "Well, I want to have this for Reiner, I have that for Reiner, I want to have this for Reiner." I'm like, I don't know, you're Peak, just fight him. It should be fine. Like,
Yeah, like find some 10 damage moves, right? Like I think that the what's I gonna say? And also like shout out to like the Rider Mirror, like we've ever talked about like the Rider Mirror is kind of goofy because you never have United Front.
yeah.
Well, you can build a lot of decks that say that Rider never has United Front. You don't
Yeah.
need Imprisoned to fight over United Front. You can use Chomp, you can use Fatal Cleave, you can use Earthbreaker, you can use Target Flips, you can use all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, play UFS and have Fatal Cleave. Yeah. Yeah, I know Chomp is a big part of the reason why I'm like thinking about Shin Godzilla again. I haven't assembled it. I haven't like reassembled the deck or anything like that. I need to figure out what I'm gonna use my limited agency over the course of the weekend between like Friday and maybe some group testing and whatever on what I actually want to test out for VLCs or not.
I've seen a couple of people talking about Hanji and uh Hanji Four Eyes specifically, and the I'm like looking at their Ravages of War at my desk and thinking about the Sun Jinwoo attacks, and I don't know if it's even good, but it's appealing. And like Chivalrous charges to Mothra, she's never gonna kill it. I guess maybe she can't kill it. I don't know. She can throw a signal shot at it or whatever. If I'm Hanji, like that's not gonna work. And then I have enhanced draw and attack for my stage.
True.
Denying the Foundation's card type.
Yeah, I think there's probably some merit to just play some random stuff that people weren't expecting, because maybe Titanatera was gatekeeping something that is decent in Reiner or Mothra.
It's like there's a lot of I think people were really excited as the set dropped in the first batches of Elfies because whatever you like to do in the game, and this has been kind of one of the design principles, is that you can do that thing. If you really like blocking attacks, you can play Mothra and block a lot of attacks. You don't have to check for one of them. If you really like destroying foundations, this is the best time to ever destroy your opponent's foundations in the whole game,
Right?
like in the history of the game. Seriously, I mean, maybe arguably like it's worse
Spirit
than
Gun meta, but
when you have literal self-destruct, maybe Spirit Gun meta, but like that was like Tagoro Bros and Spirit Guns. That's two broken cards, yes.
Yeah. We had a meta defined by destroying foundations. Is all I'm saying.
But like, Shin Godzilla destroys more foundations than that deck did. If you're letting him, right? Like, you can play Chomp, you can play Fatal Cleave, you can play Earthbreaker, you can play Final Words, you can play.
If you really just want to play all of them,
yeah. And that strategy's not good. Let's be clear. Like, you play Rider 1, like ruin on your face is more foundation destruction than we used to have. Okay, this is like as much as Jetta, but yeah, it's not destroying foundations, Jose. That's momentuming them foundations. Like
It's still denying them. If we're looking for the word deny them foundations, then it's fine.
And like momentum is better than foundation anyway. I'd rather have momentum than a foundation.
Yeah,
I think it matters on how many foundations I have.
Yeah, speaking of Jetta, I think one of the things about Reiner that's a little weird to try to figure out in terms of trying to prepare for him is the going first second splits seem huge on that character.
Yeah.
If he goes first, your range of ways to like make him not flip on 2 are much smaller than your range of ways to make him take till turn 3 if he's going second. Because you just don't get an attack turn to try to do stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree a lot. And this is also, I know I saw a little bit of chatter on this specifically with Annie, the Annie 3 deck that topped the regional by like getting turned to 8 Titans of Terror and beating 6 of them. And that reportedly he just won 6 dice rolls and lost 2 of them, and that's why his record was like that.
I think it's a little less interesting than that. He did fight a lot of Titanators. I think he had like one or two games that weren't Titanatare.
No, I think Hedorah was in there too. So I think
it was like by Hedorah 6 Titanators.
Yeah, he won the die roll against a lot of the Titanators.
But yeah, like I think that's why they ship the backup decks, that you can get a back, like, because your opponent can't attack your backups on turn 1, and so that's a very crystallized player 2 advantage. I have a
Oh.
bad idea, which is that we need a token that's not a Roman cancel token and not a power token, but like more shaped like a power token, but with more abilities, and that you should be able to get it in play on turn 1, and it's like stack -3 damage or something, so you can keep your backup alive if they casually poke it.
Some kind of like going second token or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's either a +1 to a check or a -3 damage or like draw a card.
I mean, a coin of some
Super
kind is something that's
customized.
been bandied about from before we had token as a card type. It's like, I don't know, that's kind of a weird, funny shaped thing. Not like we have tokens in the stage already. Like, it is something they could try to introduce. I don't know how in the world they would. I mean, you'd presumably want to test run something like that, and that would be.
Yeah, I mean
difficult.
they would put it in a set the way they put tension in a set, and then we would say, oh, this is what player 2 should be. You know.
Yeah, or maybe they convince a community tournament to run it and see what people think.
Dude, how many power tokens should you get as player 3 in triple threat?
You just start the game with power tokens.
Boy, that's sick. That's so sick, actually. You get like 2 foundations and a power token, and two power tokens. Anyway, I've been posting on Substack, guys. I'm praise me, please. I need the validation.
Yeah, so it's like the weird parts are like part of the advice to beating Reiner is like win the die roll, but it makes you. It feels like you have a lot of pressure to win the game that you get to go second in, and then try to take one of the going first ones from. Again, just because he's going to flip doesn't mean you're going to lose. It just means you're probably, if he goes first and your plan is to like bum rush him, he's going to flip on 2 and start stunning your turn 2 attack string. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think I know I've like in the distant past, I remember I've had this conversation that I maybe indexed too much into this, but I think having an idea of like when you're behind and therefore when you need to get lucky is a very powerful mindset to be in, and say that, okay, I'm losing this game. How, like, is there a path to victory? What's that look like? And then assume that it is true, right? And obviously this is easy to take too far and say, oh, my opponent will never check a 3, my opponent will never check a 5, my opponent will never draw an attack again. Like, you can lose to those or whatever. But if it's like, okay, I'm gonna, like, Reiner flipped, and if he draws 4 attacks with a Thundersphere Barrage, I will lose. Well, okay, what if he draws 3 attacks and they're not Thundersphere Barrage? Like, hey, can you win that game? And if you assume that then he's going to medium brick and you can have a chance, like, then play to have that chance and play to give yourself the outs. And I think that maybe this is even a thing of just broadly, like, the lessons of Titans in general is that they get to do, like, Titans and Quest decks, of which Reiner is both, but like United Front decks in general, if you can stick to your United Front, keep it online, they're going to have an advantage, but it doesn't make them invincible. It doesn't make them completely overwhelming automatically. And like a strong player will still find, you can be down 95% to 5%, but if you still win 1 in 20 of those games where you're down by that big of a proportion, like, that will add up. And the games where you're down by 2 to 1, like if Reiner goes first, he's 2 to 1 or better or whatever. Like, you have a competitive matchup, you can win half your games where he gets to flip on turn 2. You still have to fight to win those games as player 2, but like that's not even that bad a percentage. And then if you're winning all your games as player 1, like that's roughly an even matchup, probably, right?
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that's been on the tip of my tongue as I realize this is a really like nice vehicle of like basic like deck building philosophy, right? Like the going from here are the basic rules of the game, then into like how do you actually build a deck? Like, what actually makes it a fundamentally normal deck? Is this idea that there's like you just divide cards into like you should have like a typical deck can have high, medium, and low, right? High, mid, and low, right? We have 3 zones. We have 3 sections in your deck, and by default, a deck is equal proportions of these. So there's 20 low cards, 20 medium cards, 20 high cards. And I think of the high cards as the attacks, right? They check bad, they're risky, they're expensive, but they're how you actually win the game. And then the mid cards in the normal construction of this is that the mid cards are like your 2 foundations, like your strong effects you put in your stage. They make good progress and have real costs. And then your low cards are like your spams, so you have your consistency, your base, your turn 1 plays and stuff. Reiner has this shape, but he flips it on his head a little bit because he's playing 20 foundations total and then 20 funny cards that don't pass checks so much, and then 20 attacks still. And it was so pleasing that it's literally the shape of I've never seen a deck that's literally 20 foundations, 20 attacks before, and it was delightful. I've played fewer foundations than that, but there was more assets and it was a lot of fake foundations, and fewer attacks also. And like the tricky thing is if you're a 6 hand size, like naively, you draw 2, 2, and 2, right? You draw 2 highs, 2 mids, 2 lows in like every draw, but it's not evenly distributed. It's like when Reiner is player 1, like his good draws where he goes like asset 4 foundations, turn 2, tension, 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 transform. Like yeah, you're really far behind. But his player 1 games also include games where he goes mulligan, second mulligan because he has 0 foundations into 1 bit like soup, inspiring song, go, right? And those games are plausibly very winnable, plausibly like you get to completely clown him if you like steal his first attack and then breaker block him. Right. No matter how good his draw is, he's going to be super vulnerable to those. And that's this is not necessarily, this is the other side of Peak Universe is that you have the competitive games you have to stick in even when it's going gets rough, and also you have the completely non-competitive games and funny shaped decks like Reiner get to walk in both of these.
Yeah, I think one of the things I liked about my Chaos build relative to the Order one, and I don't know if I'm necessarily advocating for playing Chaos in like a post Titan of Terror situation because the discard hate, it's unknown how good that's going to be. I mean, obviously you get to take away team hero targets, but you can only do so much of that effectively.
Yeah.
But one of the nice things was that I didn't have, because I didn't have Bloodsucking Universe, I didn't have a 5 diff tension attack. So a turn 1 that's like 2 assets, a Yelena and a Foundation pass is fine. I can play a 4 diff tension move, and if they don't have a direct answer for tension right there from their opening hand, then I still get to flip on 2. And Yelena get me a Foundation, and then hopefully I reviewed into some stuff. There's still some games that where, turn 4, I still only have 3 foundations in play, and it's the one I drew, and then some Yelena activations. But, it wasn't doomed when it drew 1 foundation, which is nice.
Right.
Why we should ban soup. That is truly heinous. No one should ever ban soup. We should actually we should anti-ban soup. We should, like every deck starts with 2 soups. Like this is the right thing you should be doing. Every right-thinking person wants to play soup and eat soup. Soup tournament.
Tarian soup merchant.
Obligatory lunch break. You have to eat soup.
Look, if the venue gave me free soup, I would happily take it.
Right? You get beggar. Like, oh man, get catering and just like have them bring in a giant tub of broth, like just like sipping bone broth. That'd be awesome.
Ooh, I do love some sipping bone broth.
All right, so I'm about running, fighting Mothra in particular, right? We've talked about Reiner a bunch at this point. So aside from just like spitballing what we might do against Mothra, so there's obviously like play a lot of deadlock cards, play the like, well, she can't kill me either, was kind of really the shape of the 1.5 game match I got to play against Mothra was that even like deep deadlock, I guess I hadn't cycled yet, but Eli full sent you everything and put me to like 7, because just blocking and stuff. But and that -1 damage adding up.
Yeah, I was gonna say -1 to everything matters a lot when the character doesn't put a ton of stats.
So like there's that approach. I think certainly Jet Haymaker, if you can put damage on it, is a very, very good card. Or in Mothra's case, you force Mothra to activate on it. When it they may not necessarily want to. They might, or conversely, they have to save Mothra for it. If they're worried about Jet Haymaker getting like actually lethal damage on them, if you're like a Cabal's Ruin type deck, or something that can,
man.
yeah. This is a Donatello thing, right? The Cabal's Ruin Jet Haymaker kill is something that it can do.
Damn, dude, I was just, like, you said Donnie. I was like, yeah, scaling plus X damage. Like, I don't have to push any buttons. You just have to. If Mothra can't defensively seal my character, I'm going to force her to block every single thing I can find.
Yeah, and you get to play.
And-
And another card that's good against Mothra is Goblin Bolt. You
Yeah.
just cancel the auto block activation, and then it's normal stuff you might do to try to get over a big tall stage. Mothra, the foundations that are being played, it's not like it was, right? Mothra's not playing release. The foundations without the character in that deck are not a whole lot to write home about. Like, there's some good ones, obviously, but it's not the defensive stages of yesteryear.
Right.
Yeah, if you just put raw speed on things, like the deck does play substitute member. It does play things like Cape and obviously Mothra herself, are all effective against like a 10 speed attack. But I can imagine if I'm just like playing like female Titan attacks type stuff, right? Like I think peak with Battle Aura releases, right? It's 7 speed attacks. Those force Mothra to flinch pretty quickly, and force them to either start committing serious resources, like start committing. Like I remember I managed to attack and get get them to commit a Battle Arrives to pass the check to block. And it's like, oh cool, let's now unlock something in my stage here. But yeah, like that fundamental direction of just having scaling speed, having a lot of speed can be very valuable. Having throws obviously force them to have throw blocks, and I think just having assets. Assets are much harder to stop for that deck than foundations, and assets get to stick in your stage. If you have like, there's good backups. I could imagine like a water deck that's just like you just put Ray Fillet in play, yeah, and then you have to find some way to assemble a big attack string, which is not necessarily trivial, especially while you're getting your stage potentially punched. But
yeah, but like the Karamas of the world can probably kill a Mothra, right?
Especially if
you get some time, you get
to damage. Yeah. And by the way, I think that for anyone who's not intimately familiar with these decks, especially now without metaverses, the broad shape of the Mothra deck is that it's playing an unbelievable density of just foundations, or just cards it puts in the stage, and cards with blocks, obviously, and critically like 4x Imprisoned, 4x Batcher Arrives, often 4x Team Hero, to be able to assemble these, and then so it has enough surgical answers to take any of your foundations that are like Science Rose or big deadlock threats, take those off the board, and then just block and defend, kind of indefinitely, but ultimately in general, like either until you leave a big opening and it says, okay, here's like triple Queen of the Monsters, and that's 21, maybe that's enough, or else to cycle and then play a very, very long attack string of like Syntheso plus Harmonious Spirit, I think is the name of the cycle lock regrowth.
Yeah.
And then they're also just playing Divine Defender so they can pick up their block tricks or their Genkais and stuff.
Yeah, Genkais and Cape are very much in this deck. In moment of normalcy, obviously, like all the things that are all the effective block tools that exist that have flooded the metagame out, just as just powerful cards, because you want to defend yourself, you want to be able to defend yourself with good cards. They happen to, a lot of them land on the air symbol.
Oh, they're not. They might be playing 90 cards. I don't think they're going to cycle.
Yeah, you could make them cycle if you were playing actually like
not
deck attack cards. If you were playing Final Exam Haymaker loops, you could maybe beat them with that. But
if you were mill them to not, perhaps.
Ooh.
That's a character that puts a lot of speed on everything. That character probably kills Mothra sooner or later.
Oh man, now that I think about it, is there any cycle lock stuff in on Elizabeth symbols? Because I want to play retro.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was playing a gut punch like loop Elizabeth deck for a hot minute, but I just didn't have any payoff for the mill 8.
They didn't make very certain not to give not to any good cycle lock cards. They were very careful about that.
Yeah, but you get Fatal Cleave, that's a good one. I think Godzilla has Cycle Lock. The Godzilla Stand Foundation is Cycle Lock Target Destroy thing for a flip, which is above rate, but
I forgot she had death.
Lizard's last symbol is all.
Yeah, I didn't realize she had death. It's been so long since I played her. Yeah, she can just play Mikasa's. Hell yeah, I got a new retro deck to build. I think it's so bad, but it's so fun.
Like that is above rate for retro, but it's not very above rate.
Nah, but it's funny.
Yeah, it is very, it is extremely funny, which is honestly more important.
I'm gonna gut punch you every single turn and then murder you once you cycle. It's fine.
Do you mean what's it called? Gut punch? Are you talking about like the mill six guy, the
It's
flash
the
guy
yeah
from MHA?
the mill 8. I thought it was gut punch.
Because
Yeah,
you
I
might
think it's
because
gut
you
shot.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
no.
final exam gut shot. That's what it is.
Oh, so there's two. So I was gonna say, is it gut punch or is it gut shot? But I wasn't thinking about
Yeah, that
final
one.
exam gut shot. I was thinking of the ready your character gut shot.
Oh,
yeah.
There's two gut shots that you could feasibly be playing in Elizabeth for value.
Yeah.
So that
That's
one
funny.
readies your character and you can mill them in
On
again.
not block mill your opponent. Yeah. That's funny.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
For a sec, I thought you were going to say Gut Drill, which is a Bedrock card from Tekken.
Mm.
Elizabeth cannot play regular gut shot. No, she has water. She
It is
can't play
water.
on the same.
It's
She can't play on the
gift,
same
essentially.
symbol. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't. You unfortunately cannot have the double gut
Yeah.
shot deck.
You get one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this.
And I would actually consider Gut Shot in standard in Elder Figaro if I could do that. Dude, like I posted a big Substack post this on Monday, and I wonder maybe we can talk about boring versus unfun, as failure states of the metagame broadly. That I think I stumbled into in a Discord conversation and said, "Hey, let me write this up," and it took me like 3 hours to write, but I finally posted it anyway. And I was broadly just reflecting on the state of the metagame. And what was my actual segue into this topic? Shit, we were just talking about gut shots.
I believe you were talking about killing people by milling them with Elder Toguro.
Yes,
Which is indeed pretty boring, but
it is pretty boring. So the idea in the piece is broadly that I hated it was that there are not options. That was the thought. There is a paucity of, like, there are many powerful things to be doing, but it doesn't feel like there are many. There aren't many things that are like outside of just like the natural archetypes. There aren't a lot of bad cards laying around on the sidewalk waiting for you to find the right home for them. It feels like, in a way that often a lot of the metagames, we have mill decks that are out there. Like we have Sir Night Eye. It's just not very competitive at any point, but it's kind of funny to imagine, right?
Right.
And like Elder Figaro, like I can't. Has anyone even played Elder Figaro recently? Is there anything interesting to do despite having this insane defensive resource that gets owned by Chinatown and this like get any attack you want whenever you want? It's kind of wild that there's not anything cool out there for this.
yeah, I think losing Elder Trigger in particular, losing Barrier Shield took a lot of wind out of the people's sails, I think. But
Yeah,
and there's Chinatown, and then there's just generally like this guy does nothing to crushing impact kind of vibes. But I was thinking about this in a little bit of a different sense. I think certainly you go through this cyclical discourse where like I think Chris Smith was saying the purpose of a ban list is to give people the next thing to complain about. and there's a little bit of like, what do we actually want from a meta, right? What like qualifies as a good meta versus a bad meta? I think like in the past there's been like it's sort of been these throwaway statements. So like, well, as long as people aren't dying on 2 and games are like ending on 3 to 5, then it's a quote unquote good meta. And that's not like really the full picture, because that's here we had Titan of Terror, right? Largely killing people on turn 3 to 5, but he was not only dominant, but to certainly to play against kind of boring, right? To use Kevin's word. And I think that's probably a good word to use. Like at the end of the day, certainly one of, if not the main thing that people want from a meta is for it not to be boring.
yeah,
You don't want to play, but you're never going to eliminate boring games, obviously, but you don't want to feel like most of your matches are boring. And a game can be boring in a number of ways. It can be boring because it ends on 2. It can be boring because somebody's just doing nothing until turn 10. It can be boring because one player just never had a chance or whatever. So I think like it's a very convenient way to sort of summarize. One of the biggest things that one would want from a metagame is just like people don't want the game to be boring, right?
yeah, and I think that it's what I think that I kind of distinguish between unfun games where an unfun game is, maybe your opponent did something splashy, but you failed to like meaningfully engage with it. You failed to have your own input to it. Kind of the I like the distinction of like talking at your opponent versus like playing at them versus playing with them, and that can kind of be less than fun. If you like they do some splashy combo, people I'm always surprised when I like pop off and like completely dominate a game that my opponents aren't that mad about it a lot of times because I guess I do interesting things. I have good taste. Or like there's still some tension in the positions, which I think I shouted out that like tension is a shining beacon in this format. Like tension is very fun. Tension is not boring, even in its worst case. But then when you play against Titan of Terror, and this is actually this is something I think you crystallized really well, like way back in like the Morgan 1 days, Tim, that a very powerful position to be in is to be indifferent to what happens, right? You attack and you impose costs on your opponent if they want to block, and you say, I don't care if you want to block or if you want to take the damage. Both, I'm happy with both. I think it's either outcome. And I think indifference to me is like the essence of a boring gameplay. You don't care. You don't have a choice in what's going to happen. But even more than that, you don't care if you block or not block. You don't care if you're getting killed, or you don't feel like you have any agency in the game. So you just give up. And that's what I think is maybe the slightly meatier version of boring. Because I think, yeah, it's easy to kind of construe anything you don't like in any given negative term if you want to try that. If that makes sense. That was kind of a sequence of.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly part of the like. If you want to paint the prime directive of a metagame as we want it to not be boring, there's certainly a responsibility on the player side to like have a mindset where like someone can say, well, I'm bored every time I don't win, right? Like that obviously doesn't count.
Right.
And they could, if they're playing, a pre-constructed starter deck and getting like their 15th health character bopped repeatedly, like man, these games were all very boring. I just died. Like, well, yeah, so it's not a, it's not like you can take every single person's word for it, right? But if you're like thinking about like the game states and the games that are happening, you can make some judgments about like most people would find this to be a boring experience or not.
Yeah, and to briefly glaze the very active writing, right? I think that I kind of realized that as I was trying to write that piece, it's kind of a form of thinking, right? You think on the paper, and I kind of realized that it very rapidly, if you really try to like pin down like here's the abstraction, here's the as you're saying, we want to talk about like what makes a good metagame versus a bad metagame. If we go up that chain of abstraction far enough, it becomes I don't like it, right? I judge it to be bad, and that's the end. That's the end of the story, right? Like that, and we can kind of democratize that and say, well, are a lot of people voting to say that it's bad, or are they saying it's good? But ultimately, I think we can abstract it forever, and then ultimately just reach the outcome and reach the judgment. And I like to think of the my meaning of peak universes is that broadly you have the good and the bad in it, and those things contribute to the game being wider and bigger and better because they're present, not just that you kind of in the along lines of the or echoing the idea of this is just the next thing to complain about. Right, there's always going to be a tallest blade of grass in the metagame. There's always going to be a best card, a best deck, whatever. And if we just banned those forever, just kept banning them, we would actually just eventually have no cards left. We would just have to ban all of them down until it was just a Sunday New starter deck, and then someone's going to complain about that too.
We're printing cards faster than we can ban them, but yes.
Granted, yeah. They could ban more.
We're going to ban 100 cards a month, and that'll keep up.
1984 in this bitch.
Yeah. I think this year it's a little less, but yeah, we especially last year we were definitely printing a little more than we probably should have.
Yeah, so I like to think I've started thinking of the word ecology to think of like the ecology of a metagame, the ecology of a deck. That it has, it's good to have a lot of different like species of plants and animals in your ecology. And that even if I don't necessarily like losing to Shin Godzilla game, my Sage destroyed, and a lot of people don't necessarily like that. Case in point, like if you Breaker 2 Reiner and chomp all of his United Fronts, you might be able to bully him out of the field in a way that wouldn't have been with a deck that can't be Titan of Terror in a million years. But now maybe it's got more space to flourish. and so we ultimately have a healthier ecology, and that some people will be bored playing against that, but at least a different flavor of boredom than just getting sheer value pressed out of the game.
Yeah, and there's elements of it. It's not going to play out. One of the facets of Titan of Terror is that his play patterns were there was like some different cards going on, but
Right.
it basically looked the same every game, right? He's gonna build power tokens and then either kill you or build more power tokens and then probably kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of like turn 2, 3, 4 was kind of just like that every game. I think the Ymir deck I played at Worlds was very boring.
Mhm.
It was I'm a flip on 3 and full send every single time. And sometimes we had to wait till 4, but it basically looked the same every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Titan of Terror being a toolbox character like pushes my buttons like in a great way, and I think the concept of a character like that is really cool. The problem is just how he ended up playing the game. Did not make him very interesting.
Yeah, and like Queen of the Monsters is a like great example of if your opponent has the nuts, and they play Queen of the Monsters second, you're probably completely like maybe you're completely screwed, maybe you're completely dead already, right? But if they have like 3 attacks, and maybe they have could they have a Shin Hashigeki next? Could they have a Crushing Impact next?
Right.
Fighting over the range of these options is very, very challenging, and forces all of the weight of like the difficult predictions onto the player who's defending against the Queen of the Monster
Right.
strings. And Godzilla might just be playing it because he wants to build a foundation. He doesn't care about the damage at all. He's completely indifferent to that. And it's like,
Right.
well, oops, accidentally, I guess we're not going to block. I'll Shin Hashigeki and kill you now. GG.
Yeah.
That was the most frustrating thing for me, was getting he doesn't give a crap what he's doing. He's just throwing cards, moving around. You can't make a mistake. His cards are too good.
Yeah.
But that was ultimately the origins of my Titan of Terror crash out. That led me to just giving up on the match and saying, I'll just play. I'll try to have fun with everyone else in the field, and that worked out okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
The power of quitting.
Yeah, so I think it's some flavor of then. I'm trying to like build out my shower thought here.
Yeah.
So I think like in an attempting to describe a good meta, taking a shot at it that's more than just like what turns our games ending on, right?
Yeah.
You want some flavor of it, and we've obviously debated it a little bit, but some flavor of like the games on the table are interesting, for some definition of whatever the person making the judgments at the top, the design team or whatever decides qualifies as interesting games or not, or believes that enough of their players think are interesting.
Well, we can dive into that a little bit. Like what makes an interesting choice? Like there's some tension, there's some uncertainty, there are some decisions, there's some play.
Yeah,
right?
it feels like both players are like making decisions that matter. Yeah. And then I think that the second thing, and you hit on this with your ecology thing, is that like I think people generally want to feel like they're allowed to play a deck that they want to play. I think you talk about the design quote a lot. I think the other part of that design quote is that not want people to be able to play whatever deck they want to play. Some of those deck archetypes we don't necessarily want to be top tier, but so it's not like every archetype is top tier, but it's like archetype is like you can show up with a straight face and not go 0-7 or something,
right?
With your if you want to be the like I hope I win every die roll turn 2 aggro deck, you could show up to an event with it even if they would never want a deck like that to be top tier. And same thing with like Toxic Prison decks or whatever.
Yeah, like I think of I played a bunch against a lot of Vortex Reiner players, right? Do you want to say I want to have the least amount of variance in my gameplay? I want to play the same game every time, and that game has you not taking any actions as soon as I want to reach the point where you are no longer allowed to play the game anymore, and I want to do this 100% of my matches, and I accept that I'm not going to succeed at this every time because it's a competitive game at the end of the day.
Right.
But that's their goal, and that kind of this can be like a person who's in it just for the joy of inflicting suffering on opponents. This could be like a Johnny player who says, this is how I express myself in my gameplay. Or it could be a Spike who's just kind of misguided about what they think the optimal competitive strategy is. But these are the Mark Rosewater archetypes, and these are good stories that we want to be able to let people tell.
Yeah, and so I think those are probably the two biggest things. Is like, are the games on the table playing out in a way that's interesting, right? Is it, a mid-range soup meta of like everyone's playing Titan of Terror is quite different than like a mid-range soup meta of everyone's playing Peak, for instance. Even though those are both turn 3, 4, 5 decks or whatever. And then can people find the deck for them that they want to play? And I think there's like a third element that I don't think is necessarily that important to like the design side, or that they should necessarily be arbitering, but I know there's certainly people like me that want to feel like we can come with our own brews, and that like matters to us. Well, I'll get very frustrated with a meta when it just doesn't feel like I can build something that's like different and cool, and I have to be like, all right, we'll go take this thing that was successful and tweak it a little bit and ship it. Like that's an annoying experience for me, but that's not you can't like teenably police that in any real way.
Right.
And well, I think that's actually. Let me know if this kind of fits with that at all, because I think that that kind of deflects off of an idea of actually. Will, you were a pioneer player in Magic for a little while, right?
A little while, yeah.
Because I know one of the things that's kind of characterized Pioneer in my head is that it had like the turn 4, turn 5 combo rule, sort of like Modern did. And also, like, I've heard it characterized as like two ships passing in the night in a lot of the metagames, right? There's 10 viable decks, but they're all just playing their own game and popping off with their combo win, and that's what they're doing every time.
I didn't really get that, but
Okay.
there were some decks that were like that, like the cat combo deck before it got banned. There are some
Yeah, I
other
think
like
that a
combo
lot
decks.
of the decks in this category of two success that did eventually get banned for the good of the metagame.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
I played Oath of Nissa, which was just like a fun like ramp deck, and it was really cool. And then they banned that card, and I got tilted and stopped playing. But
And so I think that I'm kind of connecting a couple thoughts here, but one of them is that like I've kind of memed about we've had metagames that are too good. We've had metagames that have too many archetypes, and so the kind of the middle ground of like what makes just like normal, good, clean, healthy living universes has kind of faded away. And I think that when that happens, you get more of the I can only play the combo deck. I have to be a combo deck to be good enough to ride this metagame, or like some extreme archetype, right? You have to be polarized to a prison deck or a combo deck, and it's the strategies, and that makes it very hard to brew in that kind of situation because your brews aren't you can't you can kind of blow at them and say, oh, you can't play mid range anymore. But in a mid-range shield, like everyone's playing the same game. It's just like the gradients of how you're doing it in the build. You're attacking, you're defending, you're playing attacks that give you choices of which decks you want to play or not. And that's why I think a lot of people lionize mid-range is like, oh, it's so sad when mid-range isn't viable. Is that you can't have the choices of what to do versus with combo deck because you either combo them or you don't, and so you either win the game or you don't. There's less kind of freedom in that way, and so I think that this kind of roundabout. I think this can. So does it make sense of like connecting to having the ability to brew correlates with like maybe not the power level strictly of the format, but that there is sort of a commonality, a common ground of like everyone's attacking and blocking, for instance, was like a thing that Jasco games emphasized a few times.
No, it depends on you have to define brew, right? Like
right.
you might have a format where like if it's like a mid-range soup meta and there's not like a Titan of Terror that's just like clearly better at it than everyone else, right? But everybody's playing some form of like aggro leaning mid-range or control leaning mid-range, then there's tons of space to brew. You could even try to brew like the control deck that can stop most of these things. You could try to brew the aggro deck that's faster than most of these things, or try to brew the combo deck that's avoiding this space. So I think like that's not a like no space to brew problem. It might be a like people can't find the kind of deck that they want to play problem. If there's a problem with a mid-range soup metagame, or it could be ultimately they're all six-handers with not a lot of card draw or whatever, and they're just kind of like slamming the orange cards as they see them. The games aren't actually that interesting, kind of thing.
Right.
It is something that could be going on. But yeah, it could it could also just be like a perceived this wasn't actually true for reasons, but I think back to the 5 deck meta, right, where we had a diversity rule and people thought you were only allowed to play 4 or 5 decks in like what's 2014 or something.
Yeah, this was when it was like Iori and
It was
Vistera,
Yori Vespera,
and
Jack
then
Lamburn, K-Dash, and Phil Birch was the 5th one, I think. And none of them won that Worlds, by the way, but that was sort of like the perception of that metagame. And that was one where like the diversity rule was like literally telling people you must all be brewers. And when you had a metagame where it didn't feel like there was space to brew, that was now a problem because of the diversity rule. And that's sort of why I think this like space to brew metric isn't something that you should necessarily be trying to design or like ban cards or anything around. But it is something where like someone might say like I don't like this metagame, and their reason isn't that the games aren't interesting, and the reason isn't that there's not a variety of these decks. The reason is just like they're a freaking hipster and they can't find their new thing.
I mean, I think that it's a good measure, maybe, and it's a good measure. I know that I've talked to Jeremy, and he said like there are so many decks people just haven't found in this field, right? And I think that's always a good sign that there is, there are frontiers to be explored, and that there are those possibilities out there. And it might not necessarily be something that can be just like linearly optimized for. They can't just say, "Oh, here's a card for like." You can't say, "Here's a card for the Brewers to cook something up." Like that's Kevin Burberry 3, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know how good the character is. I don't
Exactly.
want to try very hard to optimize it because I want to see how y'all optimize it. I want to be surprised it's surprised and delighted when I see deck lists, right? Like, if I had all the answers, like I'd be so bored. But it's not so it's not something necessarily they can easily optimize for, but I think it's a good metric or it's a good measure of like what's going on. If no one is showing up with brews that it can be at all successful, that's probably a sign that something else is unhealthy. It can be kind of like a leading warning sign of
yeah,
it's
like
less healthy than we would like.
Yeah, the stuff that the brewer's trying to triangulate, right? Like, I guess in this upcoming format, right? It's up to the brewers to figure out how they're going to triangulate Reiner, Hidor, and Mothra. And assuming that people earnestly are trying to do that, and who knows if everyone in Vegas is just going to be too skies falling to do that or whatever. If like nobody finds anything that like successfully breaks through in that situation, then you sort of have a variety problem, though there's a lot of variety between those 3 decks even. But like it's definitely a situation where like people can't brew stuff because there's the stuff that needs to be dealt with is too difficult to deal with.
Right. I agree with that timeout. Will, you shouldn't have rescinded it. That's a troll.
I need to learn how to do it for less than 10 minutes because the default is 10 minutes.
Yeah. So
Tim, if I can, so I think that are we all familiar with the Mark Rosewater play archetypes? I think I touched on them briefly a minute ago.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that it sounds like you're describing effectively like spike brewers, right? Who are trying to find the themes in the metagame and drive like find the angle where they can attack every angle at once. And I almost think, and that's certainly a valuable constituency and a strong like group of folks who you want to have in your field who can push the metagame forward. But I almost think of brewer. I mean, maybe this is just me projecting my approach to the game, but like, I was gonna tie this into retro too. I think there's a lot of people who just brew for the love of the game. And I think that they often find the really weird stuff that's just sort of out there and is, maybe you can be like, oh, this is gonna like go 4 and 4, and then someone's gonna look at the deck list, and then actually, a spikier player will take the diamond in the rough, so to speak, and polish it into an actually, like into the true form that's going to be a competitive staple going forward or whatever.
Yeah, I think my overlap here is that if we're talking about like grading a competitive metagame based on whether or not the brewers can find something to do, there's like at least some element of like it has to be maybe not like for sure positive into everything that matters, right? But like plausible enough to show up with it with a straight face and feel like you have a chance to top cut or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, because you can always brew sheer garbage.
Yeah, and I can imagine again, kind of in the sense of like this is a measure, not a metric. They can't optimize for this, but like I can imagine that there is a like group chat inside of the UVS Games headquarters where they say, "Oh man, like Tim Keefe didn't even show up with the brew this time," or like if Tim Keefe showed up with like an actual stock deck, they'd be like, "Oh shit, guys, this is really bad." And I wonder if I've ever been on that radar. And like Kevin Brober showed up with like he just neck decked freaking Mike Hardiman. What's going on, guys? This must be bad. It's like I was asleep. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just needed a deck.
Yeah, I show up to Pony. It's like, yeah, and I just like needed to make sure I was going to top 16. Like, look, you guys put this point system in.
We're punching a ticket here, man.
Yeah.
I want to say I'm not jealous of Universe's games. Like this is ultimately like people ask me like, oh well, what should they ban? It's like, bro, I don't want to think that hard to give you a responsible answer to that question because I don't have to.
Yeah, I'm not the one
to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the one getting paid to do that. Like, sure, I understand that some people want. Let me ban that. I'll let one of you do it. But like I get it that people want to see like what good players think and what like content creators think about stuff like this, but like I don't know, man. I mean, I just play this game. I'm not on the balance team.
Well,
I'm not
like
on the
I've
design
taken to
team.
just doing these like dartboard vibes. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's like 99% of this is gonna get hit, and here's the other stuff that like could happen, but I don't know if I'm not gonna think too hard about whether like they will or should or whatever.
Dude, I'm so happy they didn't butcher the token rules just for game balance reasons over minor.
I do not believe that was ever a serious consideration on their side. I think that's something that the internet was inventing. That just like came from somebody's mouth and just like bounced around some discords and people thought it was a thing. That was not something they were ever going to do.
You know, I can see where it's a appealing idea, right? It's like, oh, they can ban something without banning it, right? They can errata something without actually using the errata list. It's like, well, the goal of the company is to have a game that can be understood. You know, despite what we may say about the state of the judge program and the rulings, and that's even saying that like that is way more cynical than I meant to come out. Even given the state of things, the goal is to ultimately have a game that can be recognized and played by people. If they want to change something, they understand that they should change it in the most clear and legible way possible, right? Like tweaking we don't have like a paragraph system, but like tweaking sub bullet point 16 item 4 paragraph 6 to achieve balance outcomes does not serve the goals of the errata list to improve the game, if they even could do that. But preaching the choir. Ken, earlier, if I can like completely like jump out of these 16 rabbit holes, imagine a metagame that was all peak as much as like this was the Titan of Terra metagame. How much better would that metagame be? Can we just gush about this for a few minutes? Like, let me count the ways how much better it would be. Oh my god.
Yeah, there'd be the mirrors would be weird, which
so
would
weird.
be more interesting than like, yeah, I don't know. I got 7 power tokens, you got 3, right? Like, but
yeah, like Peak has a card pool. Her card pool doesn't just erase itself with Queen of the Monsters. Maybe we would be like,
oh yeah,
it'd be like
Queen
the Order
doesn't
Mirrors
have...
where it's like Bloodsucking Universe first and foremost. I don't know, but
yeah, it's like who assembles like their echo strings or whatever. But and you know, you'd have like, there's a lot of like tech pieces that you'd have a lot of variance in the Peak decks, probably.
Yeah,
maybe not in the attack
probably.
lineups, but in the like.
I know Jose posted. Jose got on a Peak kick, and I went and fortunately someone copied Drew's deck list who won an LC with 4x Big Fist Dash, 4x Signal Shot, no other mids Peak. You know, maybe honorary mid Bloodsucking Universe. Excuse me. That works, right? That
yes,
works.
yeah, you can. Yeah, something Nagura Yukis were doing that was pointed out to me. I was like, man, Big Fist Bash is just here to block, right? Like, no, we can make things with mid tension. Like, oh, I see.
And hey, it also had the 5 mid 2 tension, which is kind of sick.
Yeah.
5 mid 6 in Nago. But yeah, like I think that, and, you know, back when Peak was like respected as a top deck for as long as that lasted, we did see a lot of variance amongst them, right? When, you know, Death mid range
there was 4 check peaks. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a handful of 4-check peaks, but like, there was the wall counters deck, CE that didn't catch on, but I think had more legs than people give it credit for. There was like the colossal swat. There was the, even just the death decks, now the order decks. Maybe we would centralize in the order decks a little bit more, because the order decks have the very, very good ones, and then the filler cards aren't necessarily quite as deep.
Yeah.
Right.
Walmart makes a cool card.
I
I put together my like favorite card of each year list, and I have to like record that at some point in the coming few days. I almost picked Walmart as like for that year. I didn't quite, but it was like top 3 for sure. In a year with a lot of attacks.
I got a. I remembered that it's a cantrip block the other day, and like there's not a million people playing a million like 3 seed loads. It's kind of like more, smashing stomp type stuff maybe. They're at least a little speedier, have EX sometimes, but
Mhm.
like blocking with Walmer is, man. Imagine blocking with Walmer is right, then Divine Defendering it. What a rush!
You really want to
Imagine-
attack me a third time? I'll pick this up.
Yeah,
Bet you won't attack me a third time, huh?
I think I got to do that with Struggling Studies in Irwin once, like exactly once. I think it was mostly because like, in Irwin, especially where it's like actually a good attack all the time. You don't have to like go on a crazy quest to build your peak wall counters, or your Armin 1 wall counters, or your Mothra wall counters. Uh, these are all pretty appealing ideas. I'm kind of talking myself into, but
Oh no.
if you block with it and draw your card, and then they say, "Oh, I'm going to back off," and there you go. Like, you're kind of sad. It's fine. They backed off completely. If they keep attacking you and you pick it up, they have to keep attacking you to make you block with it again.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you have the best attack in the game in your hand. You're going to draw 6 cards or whatever.
Right.
I remember in my match against Ryan Kogod at Worlds that was on stream, I happened to draw both of my Mikasa's Fatal Cleaves in like my high-low mix-up deck, and I throw one out, and he blocks it with. He's got 2 cards in his hand. I know one of them's Walk the Dog because he revealed it on top of his deck earlier, and I've been playing around it to keep him from being able to pass it easily. I was like aggressively stacking my foundations when they got committed. And then, but then he blocks with a +2 low block foundation. It's like, yeah, I have to keep attacking him to make him block the Walk the Dog. This is why I'm here.
Yeah.
I hope
Right.
that I was going to make him block the Walk the Dog and kill one of his foundations, but unfortunately, I just didn't draw the. Like, if this was Bloodsucking Universe into Thundersphere Rush, he'd just be dead. But
Right,
here we
right,
are. Okay.
Yeah, Peak just doesn't go find the best one out of the discard pile.
Mhm.
Yeah, she actually has to draw them. She has to, like, she doesn't just destructive heat ray all of their good ones. She's like lost in consciousing them, and maybe you have to like you play Chomp or Slime Guest, but like those are deck building trade offs you have to do.
Right.
I wish we had more Peak. I wish maybe we should actually ban all the Tall Blades of Grass so Peak is the best deck. That would be good for the metagame.
I think Peak's probably a fine choice for this meta.
He's probably a fine choice.
It seems good to me. I don't. You can probably Hedora is probably not a particular problem, right? Like you'll lose games to it, right? The same thing. Like you'll lose games to Reiner. I don't know how many games you're losing to Mothra as Peak, but probably sometimes.
I don't know exactly the shape of like Peaks. So
It's
my like
kinda
big picture tip for Mothra is have some ambition. Right, Mothra gives you time to assemble something, and she asks you do something cool. Like, you can't just like half-ass it against Mothra.
Right.
You can't just say I'll deal like 20 damage. You have to be like, no, let's deal 50. That's like make them have to tap out to block my wall. Like, let's play some Titan attacks, and that's like double rumbling her or whatever, and like then have some damage to back it up. And if you just half-ass it, you build a Gormless deck that has no spice. Like, it's not going to get there. I'm not sure what Peak Spice is. Right? If you're just like I'm like kind of Nagayuki shaped, like order good cards. I don't think that's. Or I mean, actually, in the immediate term, like if we think of like the Reiner deck as like Reiner to Mothra as like fine or whatever. Eventually you draw like the perfect 6 cards. Like, you Roman cancel purple after they block the second Bloodsucking Universe, and you echo them 4 times, type stuff. Like, that's because you have Reiner damage stats on it that are free. Peak has to pay for them. Peak has to be playing like value attacks in the middle game to get her pieces in order, to be like flipping stuff to draw cards. and this isn't necessarily making quite the pointy stick that you really need to finish off a Mothra. Even like Walk the Dog, it's like, okay, that's like 9 speed low, stun 1. That's pretty good. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, I think you're probably looking for like. I said that thread. I think Ice Sword's very important.
Ice Sword's very good, yeah.
I think and one of the things is like Team Hero hiding a Batra arrives or something, because what I'm thinking about is like Greater Goal does a lot here.
Yeah.
And if
yeah,
they can, so maybe you're looking for a way to reset that, right? If they imprisoned it or whatever, or they can Batras it. So like maybe it's tougher than I'm giving it credit for, but you certainly have the like. Your good strings certainly have enough like speed and damage. You're playing, a pile of 8 speed for 11s or whatever that are theoretically can challenge Mothra enough to get there.
Yeah, and actually, I think that I sort of said like play assets earlier. Like in particular, like Mothra's gonna give you time to get the big stage where you can go like Ice Sword, military airship, pick up Ice Sword.
Yes.
And then Ice Sword them again, and then play like more pockets after that. And that's not necessarily what you want to be doing is like King of the Monsters. Like King of the Monsters doesn't give you enough time to do that kind of stuff. But Mothra's not going to pressure you, so you're never stacking foundations on defense either. And so,
yeah. Peak when allowed to get to like an 8 to 12 card stage has always been pretty scary, and so I'm just kind of like leaning on that in my estimations here. Maybe it's probably not quite that easy, but because Mothra and 12 foundations is also pretty good at blocking.
Yeah, especially with like Team Hero for substitute member type stuff is very substitute member. What a card substitute member! I'm so glad we have you back.
I think it's a cool card. Yeah.
I've been having a little bit of
that's what I was gonna play.
Yeah, I've had a little Luna Ring on the brain lately. There's gonna be a lot of assets to blow up. I don't know what deck we're playing this in. It might just be play Death Shin and stop trying to put Haymaker and Shin Godzilla. But
I was literally about to say I'm gonna put that card in my Shin sideboard.
Yeah, main deck it. Screw it.
Fair. I'm playing Devastating Loss in sideboard currently, so
if you want to play Luna Ring, you shouldn't play like Shin puts 2 damage on stuff. So you like damage on damage is not a combo. You want to play Irwin Smith, 13th commander of the Survey Corps. Because then you're stacking your whole board. You're playing like Earthbreakers that are making them stack. If they can either block it and get tapped out and get killed by Luna Ring, or they can not block it and help the storm count. You're like frightening calming them.
Yeah, I think Irwin's is certainly in the space of like didn't particularly have a way to deal with Titan of Terror that is maybe allowed to see the light of day now. Yeah. All right, we've been going for a good hour here. We've successfully tangented it into enough side conversations. Like a time. Maybe we'll talk about the previews when like we have like closer to the full decks. I don't want to like get into this week by week. Let's talk about the 3 cards they previewed this week. But
right.
Real quick, I have a little one. They previewed a 1/5 flip clear a card you block with today. Sasha Blouse.
Okay. Yep.
We're doing it, guys. You're it kind of sucks. You played a Reiner, and Reiner's like, I'll flip all of your clear outs. That sucks. That's not great. But if it weren't for that, like, Sasha
we're here to play Sasha. We're not here to like metagame.
No, we're here to play Sasha because Sasha is the metagame. Like, you want to play against Hedora? Like, how does Hedora kill you? You gain like 4 health every attack. Discard a rations that gain the health. Also, you gain health off your face from the ability. You block, you clear your block, you pick up another ration, you gain 2 more health.
No. Bring it to locals on Friday and clown on my stupid fire right on with it.
I'm gonna play Benny Maru. I remember I like Benny Maru and I have the stuff for Benny Maru, and I just like add a foundation to my Momentum and then powerful to it and like build my own stack foundation plus 2 damage because I have a type. 7-hand size stack foundation plus 2 damage.
Fair enough. Right, with that, I want to shout out your content there.
Yeah, so I have a Substack, buildubs.substack.com. I posted a couple times, and I can probably I have a big queue of stuff to post more, and also like halfway finished drafts and stuff. So like, yeah, make the number go up, and it'll make me do that more often.
Right. So I have a YouTube, YouTube/Cetonis, CETONIS. I've got a video coming, I'll say within the next 7 days, and hopefully that is actually true. Just kind of like picking, because it's the 20th anniversary, I pick my favorite attack from each year and sort of just yap about them. Not necessarily the best attack from each year, or even like my favorite competitive attack from each year. Just kind of like scroll through UVS Ultra and what sparks joy. All right,
Yeah.
that one.
Hell
Right?
yeah.
I mean, I think that's cool. So
Yeah. So we're gonna do that. We'll talk about some old cards and then end up talking about some recent cards. Just obviously a Jet Haymaker is going to be this year. We're gonna glaze that some more. But yeah, keep an eye out for that, and certainly plenty of other videos on that channel.
Okay. I just got this in the mail. So maybe sometime after Vegas, I'll clear off my desk and get a setup to stream some stuff. Worst case, I can be the distraction while Justin and Broberger arguing.
Yeah, just like hold up a sign like, "Hey, go to twitch.tv/this and watch."
I was just gonna swap cameras.
Oh, okay, yeah, you can
Yeah,
do
and
that.
just have it in the corner.
You could do that
way,
on Video Ninja.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a button to just share screen.
Okay.
I don't know if it
Oh,
swaps it or not, but we'll see.
You could have OBS as a virtual camera that it's wired up to your camera in one scene, and you just go in OBS and switch the scene to This is how way back when I actually played webcam. This is how I did it. I had my webcam set up with the life counter on my camera.
Okay, I just have to figure out how to do it. But yeah, other than that, there's always the VOD channel on YouTube, which is 4ChecksCast on YouTube. Every new episode goes up the following Monday after our stream, usually around noon EST, because that's when I have it scheduled. But there's a convenient little playlist. If you missed anything, feel free to go check out anything that you've missed.
Right. Sounds good. I think Tam's on Riftbound tonight. I guess we can rate him for kicks if I ever remember how to do it.
I think it's just Splash. Yeah.
Cardwell.
Thanks for doing this, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Take care. Good night.